Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
A good Wednesday morning to you. It's now about 10 minutes before the top of the hour and time now for the tropical update. Well, we are rapidly approaching the peak of the hurricane season. Usually as we go through the latter part of August through early September, things start to get more and more active in the tropics. And in actuality, the actual climax and peak of the hurricane season is September the 10th. However, we have one major factor that is helping to suppress tropical development, and that's the El Nino. Now, the El Nino simply means warmer than usual water temperatures in the Pacific, and usually when that takes place, it has a tendency to suppress tropical development. And currently across much of the East Pacific, we are seeing water temperatures actually averaging about 9 degrees warmer than usual. So again, with these warmer than usual water temperatures in the Pacific, it's really having a detrimental effect as far as tropical storm development is concerned. So right now, things are staying pretty quiet throughout most of the Atlantic basin. Now, historically speaking, though, from 1886 to 1996, there have been 112 storms that have formed during this time span from August 21st through August 31st. So again, typically speaking, the latter part of August starts to get more and more active. But that has simply not been the case over the last few days or so. Things have been rather quiet throughout most of the Atlantic. Now, we do see a low-pressure area that has formed off the Carolina coastline. This is a non-tropical feature, though, a low-pressure area producing some showers and storms. Meanwhile, still very quiet throughout most of the Gulf and the Caribbean. And again, we have some tropical waves, though, coming in across the mid-Atlantic, continuing to press off towards the west. But nothing is looking too threatening at the present time. Here's a closer picture, though, that low-pressure area that's swirling off the Carolina shoreline. There it is right there. Currently, it is a cold core system. So again, it's showing non-tropical characteristics. And this low-pressure system will gradually work off towards the north-northeast, more or less paralleling the coast. And we're advising caution for those of you planning on going boating today, especially back into the open waters. You could encounter some scattered showers and thunderstorms and maybe some rough conditions right around this low-pressure area. As we zoom out towards the Gulf of Mexico, though, again, very quiet. It's about as quiet as it ever gets. And we have fair skies on tap this morning from the Big Bend of Florida, streaming over towards the mouth of Mississippi. Nice conditions for boating or fishing around Houston, Galveston Bay, as it is very uneventful this morning. A few scattered showers, though, southward over towards the Bay of Campeche. We've also had a little flare-up, some thunderstorms as well. Mainly north of Cuba and stretching on the west side of Hispaniola, a few showers and thunderstorms. But for those of you who might be planning a little getaway cruise across the eastern Caribbean, go right ahead. Looks very quiet. There was a little tropical wave that came in yesterday, but that tropical wave has since dissipated. And again, it's looking very quiet right now. Just a few clouds here and there around the Virgin Islands, but for the most part, still very quiet, tranquil conditions across most of the eastern Caribbean. The same can be said, too, as we head just east of the islands. But here is a tropical wave, though, farther out towards the Atlantic. There's a little low-pressure area, too, in association with this wave, and it continues to drift off towards the west. So we'll have to watch that area rather closely as well for the potential for some development. And then heading off the African coast, this is the coastline of Africa. Here's the Cape Verde Islands. Another large complex of thunderstorms coming off the coast. That's a tropical wave. And because water temperatures have been warming up somewhat throughout this region, we'll have to watch this area rather closely as that wave continues to pull off towards the west. Meanwhile, in the East Pacific, things are becoming quite active here. Just yesterday, we had a tropical depression. But since then, that tropical depression has rapidly intensified, and now it's a Category 3 hurricane, Hurricane Jimena, currently packing winds of 125 miles an hour, moving off towards the north-northwest. Now, there is a trough of low pressure just to its northwest, and that is helping to steer this hurricane in a northerly fashion. However, we think that trough will eventually start to break down somewhat, and the ridge of high pressure that's just to its east will more or less probably help to deflect this system, maybe curve it a little bit more to the west as we go along in time. So we'll have to watch that situation rather closely. A very compact hurricane. Right now, the eye about 10 miles in diameter, but again, a very powerful hurricane nonetheless. Stay tuned. We'll check out the weather stateside and the forecast for your holiday weekend. That's all coming up in a moment.
When I think about not being able to see, it's overwhelming.
Hours heading on in across that region as well. Isolated thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast. And there again, a look at your Monday forecast, and, well, not a whole lot to talk about. A few showers, a few thunderstorms, maybe around the Big Easy, then becoming more isolated, areas like Houston, Little Rock, along the Gulf Coast, back down into much of Florida. Talking about maybe some rain into the eastern Great Lakes region, and some isolated thunderstorms heading into parts of the west, including down around the
daylight time centered about a little under 1,300 miles east-southeast of Hilo. A powerful storm, top winds 130 miles an hour, and it's moving north-northwest at 8 miles an hour. However, it may have begun to peak out and may start diminishing now. You notice you can't see the eye on this image. The eye is covered up, a very compact storm. As we flip over to the colorized, where the higher cloud tops are colored the reds and oranges to show the tallest thunderstorms, you can still see there is a circular structure here, a very powerful storm, but it is heading over cooler waters. Eventually will start curving off to the northwest and should be weakening over the next few days. Now, further out in the Pacific, the western Pacific, well, no, first we're going to take another look to give you some perspective here. It is still quite a long ways from Hawaii, so no problems there over the next several days.
Do we find them? Well, the answer is no. It's been very, very quiet this month, very quiet. It's been a while since we got through the entire month of August without one tropical storm, but this may be the first time it's happened since way back in the 60s, since you were a kid, or since I was a kid. We got this big trough of low pressure at the upper levels, up around 40,000 feet up at flight level over the east coast. That is helping to generate some inclement weather on the North Carolina and South Carolina coastlines, but when you see an upper level wind pattern like that, you do not expect any tropical storm development. Meanwhile, in the western Gulf of Mexico, winds aloft are lighter, close to an area of high pressure. This is an area which, if occupied by a tropical disturbance, could see some development. Right now, we don't even see any clouds. So for right now, it looks like that beach weekend on the Texas Gulf Coast is on. Huh? Very nice. High pressure over the eastern Atlantic. Notice the counterclockwise swirl to those wind barbs. All right, let's get in a little closer to home. Kind of a scary satellite picture. If you really didn't know what you were looking at, you might think that we have some tropical development along the east coast. Well, that spin that you see is at upper levels. There is an area of low pressure that's southeast of Cape Hatteras. One of the buoys that we have access to has a current barometric pressure of 1,008 millibars, which is below mean sea level pressure. That's relatively low. The winds there are northwest at 15 miles per hour. So that's an indication that the surface low pressure is right out here. Here's your upper level area of low pressure. We'll keep an eye on this area. Right now, no tropical development is expected in the next day or two. And we are expecting this whole area of spin to slowly head up the east coast. You'll know notice these clouds coming in from the northwest, high thin clouds over Atlanta and Knoxville. We believe that around the back side of this trough, that action is going to draw this thing northward. As it does, there may be some choppy seas, maybe some windy conditions along the Carolina Outer Banks, maybe into the Virginia Tidewater region over the next 24 hours. But right now we are not concerned. We're not worried about any tropical development. But we'll keep a close eye on this area. All the showers, by the way, are offshore. We just have a cloudy night tonight going in Wilmington, North Carolina. Further out into the ocean, we find very quiet weather. All these showers were land-based today. It appears as if a tropical wave has been heading toward the west, but into a very hostile environment. The upper level winds here are strong out of the west, as you can see, these high thin clouds. But then as we head out into the Atlantic, the winds become a little lighter. Notice these high thin clouds going that way. Further out this way, the winds aloft are lighter, and that's where tropical development is a possibility. Now, we're still well off the coast of South America, far away from Guadeloupe, the island of Guadeloupe that had about a half an inch of rain. That was not due to any tropical system. This area of low pressure, and then another area of low pressure out here, maybe another tropical wave, certainly bear watching. But this is Wednesday night. It's going to take these things a long time to make their way over to the Americas. So even if something does develop, that beach weekend, for the most part, at this point, I should say, should be on. Should be okay along the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. Hurricane Jimena is way out here in the Pacific Ocean. Here's Los Angeles, there's San Francisco Bay up here, and this is Hilo, Hawaii on the Big Island. And to the east-southeast of that is the eye of Hurricane Jimena, 1,260 miles east-southeast of Hilo. Maximum winds 120 miles an hour, the movement still north at 10 miles an hour, but there is an expectation that this is going to turn toward the west. We'll switch over from visible to infrared satellite imagery here. And you can see the swirling in here, but we have lost sight of the eye. That's an indication of some weakening from Hurricane Jimena. Our last stop takes us into the